breeding llamas, and that was my introduction, I think back in 1982. And then in 1984, when we learned there were some alpacas, that was really how we got involved. But again, back in those days, the alpacas that were in the country were, coming from zoos and small imports. So not anything like the alpacas we have today. So I started off quite early in the industry, and the rest is history.
And so can you remember how you got your very first one?
I think it was a farm on the East Coast, and they had 7 alpacas. We were paying, I believe we paid like $12,000 a piece early on, and I think we got 4 females. And the males we weren't sure about at the time. I think we might have gotten the male. And they were atrocious looking things. I mean, back in the day we just loved them, but and when I was in Peru, I did get a chance I was studying more of the country and the people, but I didn't really understand the quality of the animals, and I wasn't going through large herds. I just was watching the people from the side and how they interacted with them. So I was not really well-versed in what a good alpaca looked like. So that's the first alpacas were from the East Coast. Then we found Mike Safley's dad, Ken Safley, I think was his name, and he was an exotic animal breeder. He had various and sundry types of animals, including zebras, and also raised alpacas. And we went to visit him and ended up purchasing a couple from him, and that later, I think, evolved to the Pet Center with Phil Mizrahi in Burbank. And the other person we met early on was Ralph Huber from Happy You Alpacas. He was a really wonderful man who was a doctor and retired and had a farm. And these were really interesting dynamics at the time. His whole pitch was that the English alpaca was the superior alpaca. And he raised English alpacas, and they all came from, I believe, I don't know what import. I know there was an import that came through from the Hearst group. And then there was a Kessling import, but he knew specifically of this English lineage. And his animals were bigger, but they were just as atrocious looking as anything else. And, I mean, most of these animals were hybrids. And it come to know now what we're doing with alpacas, Sheila, back in the day, these animals aren't even sold on the marketplace anymore. What we started with in this country is amazing. If people could understand what we began with, they would really not believe it.